Hi everybody, Dan Ullman, Matt Bernier for Weekend Wrap, taking a look back at last Saturday's Grade 1 Belmont Derby for 3-year-olds. Some of the best 3-year-old turf horses in the country. They break from the gate. We know who the speed was going to be. It's going to be Oscar Performance, the number 4. He makes the front, and he makes it rather easily.
He broke a little bit slow, though, so I think he was in behind the 8 ball a little bit, but Jose Ortiz knows that this horse, only way that he can win this race is go right to the front. He goes out there, and he sets another rated pace, very similar to what we saw in the Pennine Ridge. He did the exact same thing. He made this field pay.
Ortiz won the race, as you said, in the opening furlong. Oscar Performance, a horse that has done his best running on or very close to the lead. It wasn't away quickly, but he was able to not panic, send the horse on his way. And much like in his local prep race, the Pennine Ridge, he's on a very easy lead. When Big Score, the number 9, a horse that's made most of his hay coming from the back of the pack, is up close and sitting second, boy, you know Oscar Performance is going easy. And look how bunched up this field is.
Yeah, everybody's separated by a grand total, 6-7 lengths. And also you have to factor in when you've got a horse like Big Score who, we didn't know how far he really wanted to go. So if you've got that horse pressing you, Called to the Bar, I think, was probably the sort of X factor in here. And then you've got Yoshida rolling up 3 wide. I still think if you really believed in Oscar Performance, I'll admit I did not, you had to feel pretty good.
They're going so slowly, 49-2 to the half, Matt, that Yoshida in a good position was pulling a little bit. I didn't think Yoshida would be this close. Heck, he came from 25 out of it in his prior start with a much different pace scenario. But if you're a Yoshida fan, you have to be pretty comfortable with where he is right now.
Absolutely, and I think that's why it was a little bit disappointing to see him deliver as little as he did down the lane, because he's still in a pretty good position. And again, you see Called to the Bar down on the inside. You had to like where that horse was. Homesman's getting involved here quickly. The problem is, this horse, Oscar Performance, can kick.
Called to the Bar in the pocket. Homesman was following Called to the Bar. No excuses for him. He angles out into the 4 path. He's going to change leads, and he's going to try to make a run. But Oscar Performance just has plenty left. After 6 furlongs in 1:14-1, he's too clear. Called to the Bar is trying. Homesman is trying. Yoshida is sort of even, but it's Oscar Performance. Winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Had a couple of fits and starts this year at 3, but he is back on the beam.
Yeah, I don't know what the excuse is for those first 2 races. Maybe it was just the cut in the ground, because these 2 most recent starts have both been very, very good. I happen to think this horse is still slightly better going shorter than a distance like this of 10, but Brian Lynch, hats off. You've done a very good job getting this horse back to what he was as a 2-year-old.
By the all-world turf stallion Kitten's Joy, this is the 2nd graded stakes winner out of the theatrical mare Divine Actress, a full sibling to Oscar Performance. Oscar nominated, won the Spiral on synthetic. After the race, Lynch said Breeders' Cup Mile seems a lot more comfortable to this horse instead of the Breeders' Cup Turf. I'm beginning to think maybe he's a little bit of a tweener, though. His speed, he's fast. I'm not sure he's mile fast. We've got some very fast horses in this division, and 1.5 miles, as you mentioned, might be a little bit too far. But the goal, it looks like, is the Breeders' Cup Mile. The question is how to get there. You have the Secretariat, Matt, at 1.25 miles on August the 12th. Del Mar Derby at 1 1/8 miles over the Breeders' Cup course on September the 3rd.
That would personally be where I would go. Del Mar Derby, give me the 9 furlongs, because I agree with you. I think he is a little bit of a tweener, probably 8.5 or 9 furlongs is his best. And if you are really set on the Breeders' Cup, find out if he can step over the surface he's going to need to run on in November.
Let's talk about some of the also-rans in this race, and you can easily make the case that several of them were compromised by pace, and we shouldn't be too hard on them. One of them, Good Samaritan, he was far, far behind off of this pace. He was making up a little bit of ground late to finish 4th. I think it's way too early to give up. I think he's still learning, and he's shown enough in his career to make me think he's a legitimate 3-year-old turf horse.
I think the people that have just sort of pigeonholed him into the idea of being a bit of a hanger, I think that's unkind. I think this is a horse that he's had circumstances against him in all 3 of his starts this year, and he's run well, I think, in all of them. I'm agreeing 100% in this spot where I say, you know what, get him some pace, get him a little bit more of an honest run. I still think there's ability here. I think he can run.
For folks that are very disappointed with Yoshida's performance, they have to keep in mind, this was only start number 4. He was stretching out to 1.25 miles, facing by far and away the best competition he'd ever been up against. I don't think he was embarrassed here, and I don't think that you should probably be too down on him. I think that this horse might want a little bit of a shorter distance and a more fair pace scenario.
He wasn't embarrassed, but put me in the camp of disappointed, because with the trip that he pulled right there, if he was what I thought he could be, he's supposed to win this race. And not only did he not win, he didn't hit the board. He really was even down the lane. You may be right about the distance. Maybe he wants to go a little bit shorter. I understand he's still lightly raced, and there's still plenty of room to improve and be something. Maybe he's not what I thought he was.
Ticonderoga was one of the disappointments in this race. Yes, he may have been compromised a bit by pace scenario. He's a true one-run closer, and he tried to come from last. But this is a horse that's shown some ability at times. At times, he's been his own worst enemy because he's very green. Here, he didn't kick at all. I mean, Good Samaritan was basically close up to where Ticonderoga was. Good Samaritan at least tried to make a run of it.
At the Pennine Ridge, I finally bought in. Prior to that, I didn't love this horse. I just thought he was kind of a big dope out there. And then he comes here and he didn't do any running, and I don't understand what the issue was. He just never picked his feet up. They got a kind of a bizarre trip when he moved down into the inside down the lane, but he didn't do any running at the end. The even more weird thing, he galloped out in front of everyone. I don't know what it is with this horse.
It's almost as if the light bulb hasn't come on, and sometimes it
flickers,
never comes on. So always demand value with Ticonderoga, because there's something there. You just wonder if he's ever going to figure it out. Arklow looked so good in winning the American Turf at Churchill Downs. I like that performance, and I understand what Mike Smith was doing, trying to get involved early, sensing that there was no pace. There wasn't a lot of finish here, though, from Arklow. Maybe he needs a shorter distance as well.
He was the biggest disappointment to me, even more so than Ticonderoga, because at least Ticonderoga, you can say maybe the pace didn't work to his advantage. Arklow was in a pretty good position all throughout, and maybe he was a little bit closer to the pace than he was in that race at Churchill, but he just dropped anchor bad. I wonder too, keep in mind, he won that race down at Churchill over ground with some give in it. His only other turf start prior to that was at Keeneland against Maiden. So maybe he's one that wants a little bit of give in the ground. I don't know, but I think it's probably premature to just completely draw a line through him.
Where do you rate Oscar performance right now? 96 Beyer speed figure for his victory in the Belmont Derby. There's the camp that says easy lead in the Pennine Ridge equal to win. Easy lead in the Belmont Derby equals a win. They have to see it again. Are you sort of on the other side of the fence? And we know he's a pretty good horse. He can pull these kind of trips with that tactical speed, and you should never let him go off at 5 or 6 to 1 again in this kind of field.
I would just, before I go as far as to say that he is just slam dunk the leader, I would like to see him win a race off the pace, because I think we're still at a point now where if someone were able to go out there and set a 47 and make him change and chase, I wonder if we get the same effort out of him. But look, I can't deny that he's a very talented horse.
Oscar performance basically wired a window in the Grade 1 Belmont Derby. 96 Beyer speed figure for Brian Lynch and Jose Ortiz.